what if I'm worthy of what I want just right now, just because of who I am? Like that there's nothing I need to do to prove it. There's nothing I need to do to earn it. There's nothing I need to do. I am worthy simply because that's who I am. I literally am worthy of all of the good things that life that I want that comes across. There are no restrictions. There are no anything. What would it be like to live that way every day?
It's all about us, and it's time to bow down. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Bow Down. Dennis, as always, so lovely to see you,
Yes.
and I'm excited to be here today.
Likewise, Reese. Likewise, looking gorgeous as always. Doesn't matter what
Thank
continent
you.
you're on. The same is always true. So awesome. I'm so excited about. We're kind of riffing today.
Yeah.
So we were just talking right before we started recording, and we just decided to get this energy on tape. We'll see what it is, but very excited to just explore what we're looking at today. So you want to go ahead and tell our audience?
Yeah. So I think we're going to start with a little bit about Uranus moving into Gemini and that transit, because it's a big astrological transit. It's kind of like the thing of, well, I don't know if I'll say the thing of 2025, because 2024 and 2025 are crazy years for astrology, but definitely a big piece of what's going on in the sky right now. And I think both of us are really feeling this transformative energy, and we wanted to talk a little bit about how it's hitting us personally, but I guess I'll give just like a little brief overview of what this means. So Uranus is the planet of revolution, transformation, freedom, decentralization, rebellion, and a lot of people generally have strong reactions to Uranus because it is just big energy. And Uranus has 8-year transits. So as it's moving into Gemini, it is leaving Taurus, which is all about stability and comfort, financial security, home life, being a homebody. And I think we really saw that over the last 8 years, just this drive that people really had to want to create security, to want to create stability. And I think even like in recent times, the conversation around, I just want egg prices to be lower, right? Feels very Taurian to me. Like this idea of stable security, comfort, how can we just even things out? And life just felt so tumultuous that, especially in the midst of COVID, I think people were just like, I want calmness, I want ease, I want stability. But Uranus, because it's all about shaking things up and kind of tilling the soil, is really uncomfortable when it's in Taurus, because they are certainly at odds. So to have the planet of revolution in the sign of stability, you can kind of hear the tension in that. And Gemini is all about curiosity and new information. And so with this planet of revolution, rebellion, transformation, I mean, I think we've all been feeling it in the air, this like we're moving into something big, something different, and that's what we've just hit. It will retrograde back into Taurus in November for a few months, and then in April of next year, I believe, it'll be back in Gemini firmly. So what I've heard a lot of astrologers say is that this is kind of like the amuse-bouche of what the next 8 years are going to be like, and it's kind of like this knife sawing motion of like we're diving into revolution. We're going to back out of it a little bit because it's scary, but then we're going to head into it full force. So whatever is coming up right now, we're going to be feeling all of this like loosening of the soil. Then this desire for like, okay, I really want to get ready for whatever this big revolution is, and then dive into that full force. There's also a lot around like technology and information. Gemini is very much, I mean, it's ruled by Mercury, so information dissemination and in history, which is something that a lot of astrologers do. Like, let's look back at what happened in other portions of history. So other times that Uranus has been in Gemini, American Revolution, French Revolution, invention of the printing press, Industrial Revolution, Age of Enlightenment, the Isaac Newton's publishing of the Principia, that was like all of his theories, Alan Turing breaking the Enigma code, and Alan Turing is a very Uranian character too. His birth chart is fascinating. World War II, right? Just like all of these huge inventions, innovations, and revolutions are very indicative of this signature. So that's kind of on a big scale what we're seeing. But also, you're a Gemini and I'm a Gemini rising, and so we're kind of the stars of this transit. We're the stars of the show right now. And I don't know about you, Dennis, but I am feeling the soil being tilled. I am feeling the like the weeds being rooted out and all of this stuff. So that's a little bit of an overview, but yeah, how are you feeling with all of this new energy that is here? And obviously, we did your tarot reading a little bit too, which is about, I was just thinking about it as I was doing research for this episode, and I'm like, it really feels like a lot of what came out in that reading aligns with this energy for you being a Gemini. But yeah, how are you feeling with all of it?
Yeah. So a couple of things. I mean, number one, I absolutely, I get that. I agree that the reading we did a few weeks ago, and that was before we had even thought about the transit.
Yeah.
I don't remember if it was before or after it officially happened, which was like July 7th. But
Yeah.
all of that, there was just this whole bunch of newness. You know, I remember there were four aces and among other things, and so you know that was exciting in and of itself. But then when you layer that on this transit and what it means specifically for me as both a Gemini sun but a Taurus rising is really quite is really fascinating, and so I'm super excited. I'm curious. I mean, and maybe this is something. So being a Gemini sun but Taurus rising, I guess, and you're Gemini rising, correct? So how does the transit affect differently between if it's your rising versus your sun?
Yeah.
So for me, like Gemini's my sun, so I assume Uranus that's probably different than if my rising is a Taurus. So I'm gonna have I'm Taurus rising. So I'm gonna have mine's gonna be different for each of those, I assume. Any thought? I'm just curious because
Yeah.
you're much more well versed.
This is something that I do have a few thoughts on, but I will say, like, certainly please go consult other professional astrologers on this. But from the bit that I know, your rising sign, even though, of course, your sun sign is what everyone kind of knows. If you know nothing about your astrology, you still probably know your sun sign. But a lot of people are moving into using rising signs as the main basis of astrology now, because your rising is the thing that tracks all of the major transits in your chart. It is actually the thing that tells you the most about where all your other houses are. So if I tell someone I'm a Virgo sun, they don't really know much about everything else about my chart. But when I tell someone I'm a Gemini rising, they can, an astrologer who knows all of the different alignments would be able to say, okay, so this house is probably Leo, this house is probably Cancer, and this house, like, they could track it because of where the rising is in the motion of the way rising signs work. I'm not 100% clear about that, but what I will say about this transit specifically relating to sun sign versus rising signs, your sun sign is generally it's more about how you connect to other people, whereas your rising sign is really about how you connect to your higher self. I think of your moon as like how you connect to your subconscious. Your rising is like your higher self, and then your sun is how you connect to others. So with this, you're going to be feeling, because Gemini is your sun, all of this transformative kind of rebellious energy is likely going to come out through relationships, upheaval in friendships, relationships, the way you connect to other people, like overhaul with groups, and this feeling of like, because Gemini inherently doesn't want to be understood. Like as a sign, Geminis are very like counterculture, like they want to be defined against something and in antithesis something. It's very, for anyone who is into the Enneagram, I love the Enneagram. Gemini is very Enneagram 4 coded. That's like the individualist. So it's going to be a lot of this, like, if like kind of letting your freak flag fly in a way that is like, if someone is putting me in a box or expecting something from me, this isn't going to work. Like, I need to be able to fully be myself, however that is. And if that means like I need to, this sounds really dramatic, but like cut people off, change my like friendships, go no contact with people. Like that is very much the energy of Gemini sun in this, is that all of that revolution is in connecting to others. For me,
and so with just to clarify, or so with Uranus moving, so Uranus is kind of like what, like the punk rock, right? Like it's so having that with this in a Gemini sun, moving into Gemini, moving into this place, that sounds like I don't know. And again, not being an expert, so that's why I'm asking. But like it sounds almost like double punk rock, like double chaos. Am I far off on that, or is that
not at all?
Is that a layman's way of looking at it? Yeah,
100%. The way it's the reason we're gonna feel a lot of speed with revolution pickup, because Uranus is going from Taurus, a sign that it's deeply uncomfortable and deeply in tension with, into a sign that it aligns with very well. And also because Gemini is mutable air, it's very fast. So it's like being the front man of a punk, like being a punk rocker, but not having found your group yet. And feeling like no one understands me. Now Uranus is the front man of a new punk rock band. And that means that they can just move and groove in this way, right? So 100%, there is this like alignment in energy there. I would say where Uranus is a little bit more about like energy and connection and revolution, Gemini is a bit more heady, a bit more about information as opposed to like vibes, like Uranus is. Like if Uranus is gut, Gemini would be mind, but they have very similar motivations, maybe, in terms of like decentralization, curiosity, new information. Like we want to bring in the new. We want to progress quickly. And then working together is like, it's a total removing of friction in this way. Absolutely.
No, thank you for that explanation.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think again, it might help listeners who aren't that familiar with this. Like I've learned so much just through our conversations. Like I almost feel like I know something. Like I could be a little dangerous anyway, but I also know what I don't know, which is this is so deep and you can go so far into it.
There's so many layers. Yeah. And then I guess I'll just throw out there too. So for you as a Gemini sun, with this really being about your connections to others, the difference between us, me as a Gemini rising, mine is going to be revolution just in the way that I understand myself and my role in like my purpose, my destiny, my path. And both of those things are obviously deeply connected to each other because, I mean, I guess this gets into a little bit of like personal life philosophy, but to me, it's like relationships and connection and unity is the thing that colors life. Like that's part of why we're here, is to connect with one another. And so, of course, your revolution and how you connect to others is going to be related to your destiny or mission too. And the way that this is revolution in my destiny and mission, that's gonna impact my relationships. So there is some similarity in different revolutions that we will see in this kind of journey, but that would be kind of what you would hear an astrologer-ish say, with the difference between the sun and the rising. And then different people have different conceptions of sun and rising too, but that's kind of the rub on the difference in how these are hitting us. But anyone, even if you don't have Gemini in your big three, if you have heavy Mercury or heavy Gemini or heavy Uranus in your chart, you're gonna feel it more than someone who doesn't. But having it in your big three, it is very much Gemini sun or Gemini rising. These are the people that feel like they are ahead of their time and like they are stepping into a new era that is, I'm leading a revolution. That's very much the thing that we have in common with this transit, for sure.
Well, and I think to me that sends chills actually down my spine as you said that a little bit. So I very, very resonant in the sense of, we're trying to build something here. Obviously, we are building something. We're not trying anything. We're building something. But and now, to me, this is almost celestial, timing in the sense of, okay, we've started this. And I know you've been, we've both been working hard at our own things, and then hard at this, and that this is the time for the right people to come for the right people to come across to really like move things in a different to a new level in a way that we could have never necessarily imagined, because and that's, to me, that's about surrendering to the surrendering and trusting, right? It's trusting that this is what is supposed to happen and needs to happen, and trust that it's all for the greater good. I'm curious. So Uranus was in Taurus and moved to Gemini, but retrograde into Taurus for a little bit longer. But then later on, I think you said next year, coming back into Gemini. What about so? Tell me maybe a little bit more about the impact though of Uranus leaving Taurus. You mentioned that Uranus doesn't like they're kind of there's a tension, I guess is the way I would put it, between them, right? So what might what might people notice in general, just based on the leaving, forgetting about where it's going, but just the leaving? Because I think there's two pieces to this, right? Like where we were and then where we're where we are now. But what changes from just the leaving of Taurus?
Yeah, I think the way I've really been thinking about this, I mean, I've heard different people say different things about like what's going on in the world and this idea of decentralization happening. For me, the thing that I actually think is so fascinating about the timing of all of this and is what we see happening in the United States Republican Party right now around the Epstein files, which is a crazy thing to say, but I'll kind of explain why I think it's so indicative of this.
Yeah, I'm intrigued. I got to hear this. This is hit me, baby. So I can't wait.
With Uranus having this tension in Taurus, I think there was this like resistance to revolution, resistance to change, this kind of like we are progressing as a people, as a human race, we are progressing. And I think we can all feel that. There has been this like, we're on the edge of the cliff, like I'll use the analogy you use, like at a stop sign revving our engines, like there is something here and we just haven't tipped over the edge yet. And it's like a lot of people just feel that like restless kind of energy. And I think a lot of us have been like very cartoon, clinging to the edge of the cliff, like with like nail scratches in it. Like, no, 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 no. I want to be comfortable. I want to be comfortable. Like, revolution is hard. Revolution is messy. Like, can we just like try and come, like, can I at least get a little stable first? Can I at least have something to like have solid ground or like cling to? And this desperation for comfort that I think we have all felt has expressed very differently in different people. And I think you see people that are very like, not necessarily calling for revolution, but just more progressive people that are like, we need stability and safety and comfort. And the only way to do that under our current regime and inherited systems is to overthrow them. And so I think there were already people that were kind of like resigned to revolution, that were like, hey, I want this comfort. I want this security, Taurus, but I know that that's going to have to come with revolution, Uranus moving into Gemini, right? But then I think there were people that tend to fall a bit on the more conservative, traditional side of worldview that were like, we don't need to change anything. Like, why does everyone want change? The change is actually the cause of why we're all so uncomfortable. These people wanting change and wanting to do different things is why all of this is so uncomfortable. And I'm going to point fingers at the people who have said we need revolution and we need change, because they're the ones who are upsetting the status quo in the system. Now, around the same time as Uranus is moving into Gemini is when we saw like the first major split in the MAGA movement, in the like quote unquote new Republican Party. And I think that is a lot of these people who, nails digging into the edge of the cliff, like not wanting to let go, just wanting to cling to some sort of safety or security or stability, are finally like, that's a lie. I can't cling to that anymore. It has all been a lie, and I'm gonna let go and lean into revolution, because maybe that is the only way we actually can regain any sort of stability, security, is through revolution. And I think people releasing the illusion of Uranus and Taurus with this transition, it's like, we do need a move. We need to change. And I was talking to my mom about this, and I was like, I just don't get, like, obviously I understand people being like, he lied about this. He said he was going to release the Epstein files and then isn't releasing the Epstein files. He's a liar. And being upset about that. Like, yes, valid to be upset. And if he's on the list, like, which I think he probably is, like, there's so many people on the list, right? Like, obviously he's a liar, like all of these things. But I was like, why is this the thing? Like,
right.
He's a convicted rapist. He is a convicted felon. He's lied about so many things, is literally starting a concentration camp that is legally, governmentally called Alligator Alcatraz, like, that has merch, like all of these things, that it's just like, why is this the thing?
Right. Why is this the hill somebody's going to die on? Like,
right.
This appears to be this hill that,
yes.
like, you know, I can't believe this. I mean, and it's like, what? Like, I mean,
right.
honestly, because I mean, my assumption is that they're all scumbags anyway, and
exactly.
like to rape little girls. I mean, that's just my assumption, kind of.
Yeah.
You know, like, when you got more money and power than God, like, what's the final frontier? You know, it's either
right.
go to Mars or rape little girls. So, you know,
yeah.
I know which one's cheaper.
Right.
You
right.
know,
or both for some people, you know, and it's. I think, to me, the timing of this transit with this movement is noteworthy, remarkable, in that, like, it deserves to be remarked upon. And so I'll kind of note that with how I've been thinking about the transit too, is like, people are finally like, this was the last push to let go of the cliff. And I think that's really indicative of the leaving of Taurus, right? Is people finally getting more comfortable with revolution, because the sign of revolution is moving into the sign of curiosity and information, and people saying like, I want the information. I want the information. Give me the files. And that's Gemini being like, give me the information. I want to know. So I think that's interesting, as opposed to just being like, no, it's good. I'm comfortable with everything that's happening. Very Taurus, right? That it's like, we're going to figure out a way to be okay. We're going to figure out a way to be okay with it, and it's going to be fine. And with it being the straw that broke the camel's back, I think a lot of people, like, it has been building up for a really long time for a lot of people, and a lot of people felt, from a more political sense, not as much an astrological one, my 2 cents on this is like, I think the timing of it is, oh, this is something I can finally point to justify the feelings I've been having for a really long time for a lot of people, that I was okay with this up until a point, but now I didn't know what to point fingers at. And this is something that they finally feel comfortable pointing fingers at to justify finally releasing this idolization of this megalomaniac. And that paired with this energy, I think is, yeah, it just feels powerful to me. Another thing I'll say is like the flooding in Texas. A lot of what people were talking about is like the way that our communication systems really failed us. Like, we knew that flooding was going to happen. We knew that flash floods were coming, and it just wasn't really communicated to these camps and these smaller towns that ended up being flooded, and why all of these people ended up dying. And again, this like very pointed issue with communication, Gemini. So I think as much as you don't want to see horrible, horrible tragedies happen, and it's like, I don't want anyone to be on a list of like who went to Epstein's Island. The fact that that's a thing in general is horrible. But if these horrible things can also if the silver lining in horrible things happening is that we finally push towards change, that's at least something that we can gain from it. And I think that's kind of what we're seeing right now with a lot of stuff. That was a lot. That was so much. Would love to know your thoughts.
The image, I don't know, as you were talking about the holding on the cliff, the image that came to me was almost of a a platform that's moving, like, that's moving into the edge of the rock. So like, you're standing on this platform and it's slowly, moving away. So like the platform's going to be gone. Like at some point there is no more handholds because the platform is completely gone. Now maybe that's not till after the retrograde and the final. I don't know, but that's the image that I came up with, and I love I love the fact that you brought it up, that, hey, notice this movement. Like, for so long, it seemed like there's literally nothing this guy can do to be touched. Like, the people who love him seem to love him. And now all of a sudden, for that shift to occur, again, will it last? It's yet to be seen.
Right.
I mean, he's, it seems amazing that this would be the straw that broke the camel's back, but
yeah,
I could see it because, I don't know. Why not?
Yeah.
Let's let punk rock in, and maybe it'll fix things up. I don't know, but yeah, no, I love that. I love that way of looking at it, and maybe it is high time that maybe we have been too complacent and focused on just how can we be comfortable, like how can we and constantly yeah, it's bad, but I'm just going to build my own nest. And at what point is this so big though, that all of our nests are in peril, I guess is really the question. And that's kind of what I'm getting out of this, in terms of, like the information that's going to come. I mean, the information that's coming out, with Gemini being the sign of information, and it's just very interesting what else will come out, and the Bible says, there's nothing that's hidden that won't be revealed. And it's something that I've always, I don't know, it's one of the verses that's always stuck with me in terms of of trying to when you hide things, like no matter what's hidden, it'll eventually be revealed, and maybe that's what this is as well, as a period of unveiling, essentially,
Yes.
like bringing, I mean, because that's what the word apocalypse actually means, right? So when we talk about the apocalypse, it actually means unveiling. So in other words, reveal.
Mm,
It's not. We think apocalypse and world ending and stuff. It's really just
right.
unveiling, is what the Greek word means.
I love
And
that.
maybe, I could take that as, hey, information is going to be unveiled, and it's it's not going to be pretty for anyone, perhaps, or certainly those who have been very comfortable, is kind of what I take from that. Is that a, I don't know, how does that land? That's my uninformed, just listening to you,
No,
riff, I guess. Yeah.
that very much aligns with kind of what I've been seeing on a bigger scale, but also personally, like to take it back to the micro level, like it is a personal apocalypse for me right now, which sounds dramatic to say, but this year with like moving to Italy and moving back and all of the changes that I've been going through personally, it's like it does feel like this is something big for me. And in the way that like the Tower card in the tarot is everything must go, everything must be ripped down. But what does that do? It unveils what's really there. When you take away all the stage dressing, like what do you actually have underneath it all? That's unveiling. But when everything's being destroyed, it feels apocalyptic, right? It's like Judgment Day, like the dead shall rise for everything to kind of be revealed. And that feels very personally like the era. I'm in my apocalypse era. But I think too, on this macro level, like, yes, absolutely. And I love this like verbiage around unveiling and revealing, and almost like the emperor has no clothes kind of vibe, that is, there is just this point where even those that were clinging and clinging and clinging have no platform to stand on anymore. Like you were saying with this image of like the wall pushing you off, that it's like there is just so much that you can't not look at it. And there will always be people who refuse to see, there will always be the people who don't want to progress, and that I think that's just how society works. And I do think it'll be interesting to see what comes out of this first division that we're seeing amongst all of this on a macro level. And I also want to emphasize that even though I'm personally very frustrated, that it's like, hey, you're all mad that he promised something and didn't do it. How many other times has that happened? You're all mad that he may be a sexual predator. How many other times has he been proven a sexual predator? You're all mad at things that like we've all been saying for years and years. In as much as I kind of want to do the too little too late, I told you so, I think it's very important that we recognize that there's no platform for any of us anymore. Like you said earlier, like there was this, well, I'm going to protect my own nest. It's like we're all in the nest together. Whether or not you like everyone that's in your nest, like we're going through
Right.
this experience together. And I think ultimately it's like, this is what I want as a progressive, as someone who wants to see change in a lot of ways. It's like, if you want someone to change their mind, to learn and to do better, to know better and do better, when they start doing better, you have to encourage it. We shouldn't be punishing that. And as hard as it feels to not do the I told you so thing, it's like, I think that's important. So I guess that's another personal thing I'll throw out there. But
Well, it
yeah.
is tough, right? I mean, we read these stories about, uh, leopards eating people's faces, essentially. There's a whole Reddit devoted to leopards ate my face, talking about how. But these people who are essentially here, in the country, through some program, whether legally, whether they're documented, there's certain programs, people have been here for a long time, and then they're confused when when they get, then all of a sudden now they're on, they're about to be deported, or, they're going to have to leave. I was just reading yesterday about, I guess, for like 15 years or some length of time, there's maybe even longer, like a couple of decades actually, certain refugees from Guatemala and Nicaragua from the Hurricane Mitch of like
Whoa.
1990 something. Like it was a long time ago. A couple of, I don't know, 50,000-ish Honduran and Nicaraguan citizens have been in the country since Hurricane Mitch, which was like 20 years ago, legally. And the administration declined to extend that out again. And I guess it gets extended every, the can's been kicked for, 20, 25, however many years it was. And now you essentially have people who came to the U.S. when they were 2 or 3. They're now in their early 30s, and they're very likely facing the prospect of having to go back to Nicaragua or Honduras in September. And it's like, and I, it's a difficult, how should you feel? How do you feel about that? Like, is that, but then you hear other stories of people like, oh, well, I voted for Trump, but my wife is here illegally. Like, what kind of fucking cognitive dissonance in your mind would you have to have? In like, what world does that seem like a good decision? Well, I really like his policy on other things. Yeah, my wife's here illegally, but he won't touch us because we're one of the good ones. I mean, is that the thought? Like, I don't know. It's so it isn't like, how do you not have compassion fatigue? I guess for people who, it's very hard to not be like, oh, wow, you made your bed. Like, what do you want from me? Like, who did you vote for? So I don't know.
Right.
How do we keep ourselves clean of that? Because it seems very tempting sometimes. I got to be honest. Like the baser part of myself.
I agree. It's hard to be like, hey, you made your bed, you should lie in it. What, you thought that your wife wouldn't be deported because she's white passing because you're white, and that means that it's okay? Like, it's infuriating, right? Because I think as human beings, we deeply want to cling to what's fair. But the thing that I just go back to is like, what is the ultimate goal of what we're fighting for? And to me, the ultimate goal of what I am really arguing for anytime I have conversations about this is the opportunity for everyone to have the ability to live fully, well, and expansively and safely and comfortably. And that has to extend to people that I think are monsters too. Because anytime there's anyone that you dehumanize, you're ignoring the piece of you that is in them, right? And it's this like pattern of dehumanization that I think we have to get away from. And it's so hard when someone does things that seem unhuman, right? Like this denial of people who've lived here their whole lives on visas legally. And it's like, nope, now you're just not going to be legal anymore, actually. And that's going to be the thing that we get to say, like, you have to leave or go to this concentration camp. It's like, that's unhuman. Where is your humanity? But we've all, and so it's hard to see the humanity in people who do things that feel unhuman. But you have to, if what you believe in is an equal opportunity to pursue humanity, if that is your ultimate goal. Because our ultimate goal isn't just to, and maybe this sounds like a utopian goal, but the ultimate goal isn't just to bring justice to one group of people, right? It's like, no, we've actually always been fighting for justice for everyone. And that means the people who are doing the injustice too, as hard of a pill as that is to swallow. But it is the whole, like, feminism can't devolve into man-hating. Even like anti-racism should be anti-racism, right? And even though there is a certain amount of like overcorrection that I think is necessary to even the playing field, like we need equity until we can get to equality for sure. if we start behaving in the same way that these other people are, it's like, I think we've lost the war, we've lost the plot, and but it still makes me want to bang my head into a brick wall. But yeah, there's like a bunch of people that after the floods in Texas were like, well, that's what these Texans get for voting for Trump. And then they got these things taken away from them. And I was like, hey, as a Texan who didn't vote for Trump, 7-year-old girls at this camp didn't either. Like, they don't deserve to die, And to me, that's the pattern that we need to be wary of. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and well, I think what you said is a deep truth, and that is what we put our attention to, right, is ultimately what we become.
Yeah.
And when we go in, with somebody who is progressive, who really agrees with everything wants what you've said. I want freedom for people, and again, even people I don't agree with. I certainly want that. I feel everyone should have that freedom and have that. However, when you focus on an eye for an eye, right? I mean, there's that pithy trite saying, "Oh, an eye for an eye, and everyone goes blind," sort of thing. But the truth, it's different. It's more energetic than that, in the sense of you become what you behold, and if you're focusing on this injustice, like, this group has done so much to me, they deserve what you're just inviting that into your own life. I mean, it's really what you're doing. And ultimately you become like that. I mean, how many times has there been, in various countries where there's multiple ethnic factions, one faction gets in power and does a little bit of ethnic cleansing, and then all of a sudden the other side gets in power, and what happens? The exact same thing in the opposite direction.
It was just about exactly what you're saying, with obviously Jewish people being the major victims of the Holocaust in Germany during World War II, and that being a horrible, horrible atrocity of ethnic cleansing. And now the state of Israel is committing a genocide to another population. And it is very much this, and I want to be clear that I distinguish the state of Israel from the Jewish religion, right? And there's a bunch of nuance in that. But in this small example to what you're speaking about, but this, you've become the thing that you were trying to fight in the process. Sorry, I interrupted you, but...
Oh, no, I think it's prescient. It's what happens. Like, there's no way to avoid it. Like, and that's because it's a law. It's a true law of the universe, essentially. Like, what you feed grows and what you starve dies, period. Mm-hmm. And how do we feed things? Well, it's our attention, our awareness. When we're aware, and we become like what we behold. And so the real question is as the times when vengeance feels good, like, and I mean, listen, I wish I could say I was truly enlightened, in the sense of, I wish nothing but good on all people, sort of thing. I mean, there's a part of me that does get a nice, really Schadenfreude runs rampant a little bit, in terms of, appreciating, the conundrum that these individuals find themselves in, but based on their own doing. But I also realize that that's not, that's not lovely, I guess, is the way I would put it. It may feel good, and it may be justified. And so it's not about justification, or is this right or is this wrong? And again, it goes back to what I've kind of preached over and over again here, everywhere, is that it's not about right or wrong, good or bad. It's about, is this useful? Is this expansive? Is this restrictive? Which of those is it? It can't be both. It can't be both expansive and restrictive. It's either expansive or if it's restrictive. And if it's a little bit restrictive, then it's restrictive. Full stop. Like, I don't believe you can say, wow, we made great progress here, but in order to do that, we had to cut here. Well, that's not expansive. That's restrictive, right? Regardless of and I think in the economy of the universe, some might say God's economy, whatever you want to call it, it's not a zero-sum game, but yet our limited human, ego can't see it as anything but a zero-sum game. And so the question really is how do you navigate that? How do
Yeah.
you, and again, like everything else in the world, I think the first step is to notice it. Like
Yes.
notice and not judge it, because it does no good to be like, I shouldn't feel this way. Well, I'm such a terrible, because you're not, you're human. I mean,
Yeah.
it's natural to want to, take an eye for an eye, that feels good. That seems tasty. It seems like that'll be very satisfying. I think the higher calling is not to overcome that, but to integrate it and realize that it's I am this, no matter what.
Yeah.
Like there are parts of me that feel this way, and that's okay. It's not who I am just because I have parts that feel this way. I mean, these parts are injured. These parts are not perfect. They're not who they're not who I would necessarily want to be. But can you accept them without trying to change them, without trying to make it go away, without trying, just be with that part of you that does feel good that this negative thing happened to somebody else, or wow, didn't they deserve this? Like all of those things. And I think that we may have a lot, it sounds like we may have a lot more of those challenges coming up as a lot of shit might go down. And, it's going to affect all of us, in very, very real ways. So one of the things I was curious about, so we sort of even got talking about this, you and I did, because of a post that was on Reddit that I had shared with you about, again, somebody with far more knowledge, I presume, anyway, than I, at least what they wrote out made a lot of sense. And the reason I had shared it with you originally is and I think we'll make sure to put a link to this as well for people who are curious to give the author credit. For me, it was, and I'll read mine, and I can also read yours based as well if you're interested. But for me, wow, there's ants all over. For me, weird. For me, it was very relevant, and so I thought it might be interesting to talk about that, because this had to do with the rising sign versus the sun sign in terms of and as mentioned, that I am a Taurus rising, and so essentially Uranus is leaving my rising sign and moving into my sun sign, so I get it on both ends essentially. But for me, I just wanted to read that because it was so resonant with me, and I'm curious, what you make of it based on your knowledge, and then we certainly do the same for yours. But and I'm also curious if we read when you think about what this means for you, how do you? I'd love to understand your thoughts about what do you do with this information? Like how, because I think at the end of the day, it's all great to say, oh, wow, cool. Oh, look at what happened with the Epstein stuff. And, oh, that's because of this. But to me, that's backwards looking, right? That's Monday morning quarterbacking for sure. You can pick a whole bunch of events and so the question for me is so what do I do with this going forward? How do I live my life with the assumption that okay, this is what's happening. These are facts. I can't change the sun. I can't change where the planets are. I can't change any of this. So yeah, how does that sound as a way to as we sort of conclude? So I'm just going to read this. And again, we'll put a link to this, but so. As we said, so on July 7th of 2025, Uranus, the planet of punk rock revolution, alien downloads, and total system failures, plugged into the mutable information craze sign of Gemini for a 7-year tour. Arguably, it's certainly the transit of this year, and arguably for the rest of the decade. And this is what I thought was really interesting. I think we've talked about this, but just to put it there, Uranus and Gemini is less new background software update and more the moment Neo finally sees the code. The glitch is now the feature, and we have to learn to navigate it, not just as a global collective, but in the most intimate personal corners of our own lives. And think of this transit as an assault on mental complacency. It shatters old fixed beliefs and replaces them with a cascade of new, often contradictory information. It's like having your internal library with all its neatly organized shelves hit by a cyclone. you may find a volume of quantum physics shelved next to a book on ancient witchcraft, and suddenly realize they're talking about the same thing because they are.
Ooh, I love that. When I read that, it's just like, I love that.
Yeah, and so for me as a Taurus rising, this gave me chills when I read it, and still does every time I do. So I'll read it, and so you survived me. I survived 7 years of Uranus in my first house of self, a personal earthquake that deconstructed my entire identity. Now that revolution moves into your second house of money and values, demanding you invent new ways to fund your freedom. This is like decluttering your wardrobe into angry cutting all of the respectable clothes you bought to pieces, and then starting a weirdly successful Etsy store selling your own bizarre garments stitched from the cut off bits. That was my paragraph that this astrologer who posted on Reddit talked about. And I have to say, I mean, first of all, what do you so first of all, thoughts on the initial blurb before we get into sort of the mine specifically and what it means to me, and I'd love your thoughts on it too. But yeah, you said this resonated strongly, so tell me a little bit more. Like what came up for you?
The piece of this that I found so resonant was the often contradicting, but like actually paradoxically true. Because that has just been like my journey the last few years in terms of my research into the human experience and what's going on here and how do we live coherently with this. Is that the only truth I've come to is that everything is the same thing and it is a paradox, but you got to hold the paradox. And I have always held this, like, science is spirituality and the quantum physics versus ancient witchcraft, and they're talking about the same thing. I'm just like, yes, that. And even in talking about astrology, absolutely we're Monday morning quarterbacking this whole like Epstein Files piece. I do want to clarify too that it's like, is all of this happening because of the transit, or is the transit happening and our actions just so happen to align in this way? Like, what is the cause and what is the effect? Both and, to me, right? In the same way that it's like, astrology is kind of a mirror of this science of astronomy, but also this kind of metaphysical occult practice of interpretation and intuition and myth, right? And I think both of these things are really true in the way that like the Jungian archetypes are very like pseudoscience-y, but they hold deep truths, you know, and the way that we understand neuroscience, but they're like still can't explain consciousness. It's this paradox of all of these practices that actually are talking about the same mystery, and just this push into like curiosity and like all of these things being hit by a cyclone. I loved that image because it's like, it is absolute chaos. And again, the tower crumbling, right? Like all of our well-constructed information crumbling. But when those books fall open on the ground, what page do they open to? And what are they saying? Like, that's the piece of this that I'm like, ooh, I want to see what page opens. And as much as I'd like to say that, like, with all of this, to kind of tie it into the integration piece, it's like, I would love to say that my ego doesn't get some schadenfreude pleasure out of, like, bad things happening to bad people. But the paradox there is, yes, we have to notice, okay, this feeling is coming up. And I can't hate that part of myself either, the same way I can't hate these other people. I actually have to love that part of myself that I don't think is lovely. I have to be lovely towards the unloveliness, which is paradoxical, which allows me to then be lovely towards the unloveliness that I see external to me. And that is how you integrate, is through that noticing. And it is the paradox of this, right? That it's like, at some point, if we are what we behold, someone has to stop beholding the restrictiveness. Someone has to behold the expansiveness and choose not to continue the cycle. And that is what this energetic signature is we are choosing not to continue the cycle. Because
and those are and it sounds like that almost sounds like a way an admonition in some senses, or not advice, but to as to how to navigate these upcoming changes in a way is to recognize that, right?
Yeah.
Is to do exactly what you just said, in terms of not like seeing in yourself these characteristics that are unlovely, but not hating them, not trying to push them away, but rather embracing them, and recognize, have taking away their power by
Right.
by seeing them as for what they are. It's not who you are. It's not. It's just conditioning. It's truly, things that we've been taught that are deeply subconscious, but they don't have to be who we are, and we can choose. We can choose our reaction. We may not be able to choose those thoughts. Thoughts are just thoughts. Who cares? We have 80,000 plus thoughts a day, people say. Like, most of them are shit. Some of them are gold. Like, why do we think that every single thing we think is absolutely like gold bullion from heaven sort of thing? No,
Right.
it's not. It's most of it's crap. Some of it's good. Like, and maybe just taking that point of view. But I definitely I love that.
Yeah. And then all what you were just saying, it's like it's very much the way that our inner work mirrors other people. Like, we are a mirror to each other, right? And the way that we're trying to be lovely to the unlovely within us, we're trying to be lovely to the unlovely within others. But I would love to talk more about this piece for you specifically with Taurus rising and
well, it's interesting to me because
how it resonates,
well, no, it's interesting because for the two of us, with you being Gemini rising, so now you're essentially, if I'm correct, and correct me, so Uranus is now moving into your first house, where it was in my first house before. And I can tell you the last 7 years have been hell on earth in terms of everything that was said on this. I mean, literally, like, I don't know that I could have written it better, but a personal earthquake that destructed your entire identity is so apt and so correct. I cannot stress how apt that is. Like, literally, those words are like, wow, well, that explains a lot. I mean, I had no idea about any of this, but it's like, yeah, okay, that absolutely. I mean, just in terms of the timing of all of it. And in fact, I'm curious. I don't even remember when Uranus moved into Taurus. I know it was 7 or so years ago. I wonder what the date on that is, but it's something I'll have to look up eventually. It's interesting to me though that's the truth of that, and so moving now into the house of money and values, it's just so funny that in demanding I invent new ways to fund my freedom, because that's exactly what I've been doing. And it's just nice to know. In some senses, I take comfort in knowing that, wow, all of this that I'm doing, I don't want to say preordained, although you know what I feel about free will anyway, so I kind of do think it is preordained. And really, are these just signposts? Like, it's not directions, right? It's just, this is what's going to happen. Like, I didn't choose this. Like, I didn't, but this whole idea of all the different ways of weirdly successful, like, I have so many ideas floating around in my head as to how to make money. Like, literally, like 15 different ideas. And so now's the time to bring those to fruition. So I guess I just need to angry cut my wardrobe. But more than anything, I think what I take from all of this, me personally, and then I'd love to hear your take, because again, you know more about this, and then I'd love to share yours, because now you're having Uranus moving into your house, your first house. So it sounds like it's a lot more calm than the way it was for me, but be very curious to see how it ends up landing, what for you. But what I take from it is just to not fear it, I guess, is where I, like, trust that, this was always going to happen. It's going to work out just great. And knowing that allows me to lean into it. Like, yeah, so I do want to start an Etsy store selling, my paintings. Like, maybe that's something to do. Like, it's not something I've ever really tried. It's not something I've ever thought about, but why not? Like, again, and it goes back to if that's what's open for me right now is this punk rocker, thrashing the house of money, but like trust that it's a good thing, not a bad, like don't look at it from a fear perspective, but look at it from, I mean, it's the same thing with the reading we did a few weeks ago with all this newness, this change, this boat waiting to come up on the, come to the dock, essentially waiting to land. I can view that with nervousness and anxiety. Like, when's the boat going to get here? Why isn't the boat here yet? It's supposed to be here. Like, it's not on time. Wait a second. The schedule, according to my egoic schedule, it should have been here by now. Why isn't it here yet? Right? Because we all do that. I mean, let's be honest. None of us are perfect. But to be able to say, you know what? I'm not going to be afraid of this. Like, I'm not going to. You're a punk rocker, dude. Then I'm gonna learn how to be a punk rocker, and but it's gonna be in my own style too. Like, yeah. I'm not gonna try to. I don't need to fit into anybody else's mold. Like, I'm wild. I'm crazy. I have weird ideas that are not for everybody. But you know what? The people that they are for, it's transformative for them, and that's what matters.
Yes.
And so that's what I take from all of this. I think it gives me both comfort looking back on the last 7 years and the struggles. And there have been, I mean, I've redefined myself. The person I was 7 years ago literally does not exist. It is as much a figment as Tony Soprano is a figment. Like, that Dennis existed, but no longer does exist. And that's okay. Like, but now I can understand, and I can say, standing now on the other side of it, that, yeah, wow, it really sucked and sucked and sucked and sucked some more. And I'm here and I'm better for it. And so I can have faith that this new thing is all, that's my approach to it. But I'm curious what you know a lot more than I do. You have studied a lot more than I do. And so I'd love your thoughts as well.
No, I love everything that you said, and it really does ring true. And I think ultimately, like, even though I do love studying these things, I think, just like we've talked about, it doesn't matter if it's true as much as it matters if it's helpful. And so with anything that we talk about, I'm like, however anyone is gaining insight or validation or expansion or growth through these things, I'm like, even if it's quote unquote wrong or like the wrong interpretation, I'm like, I don't care. If it makes you a better, a wholer, fuller, more lovely you, please do it, And so I love your openness to that and to using your intuition for these things too, because ultimately that's what everything really is at the end of the day, right? Is a figment of our consciousness. But the only thing I would really add to your kind of interpretation and what you take from it is, yes, because Uranus is moving out of your rising sign, but it still has this implication for your rising sign. It's almost like how the chaos becomes your stability, because it's moving out of Taurus, the house of stability, financial security, comfort. But with this piece of like starting an Etsy store, letting all of these wild ideas that you have funnel and channel into productivity in a generative sense, right? It's like, how can chaos actually be stable in your life? It's like you've had these last 7 years of chaos within it, like supposed to be stable in Taurus. And so now it's kind of like, how can I use the chaos that was kind of generated for stability itself, even though that is paradoxical? That's very much what it feels like. And I think that that's really beautiful and unique. Also knowing you and ADHD and how you do have a million creative ideas a day and you want to be able to pursue so many of them. It's like, it feels very you to me in this sense of like letting all of these things that may, from the outside looking in, someone would be like, that's too much. It's too chaotic. It's too all over the place. Like, what's the connection? What is all of this for? To you, it makes sense. And it is the stability. It is the curving path is the straight and narrow for you, if that makes sense.
I love
That's
that.
very much how I see it, and it just feels very like, yeah. And
Oh, I
so
love that. I
I
love
think
that.
it's beautiful.
Awesome. No, I appreciate that. Yeah, I love that, and I take it. Um, yeah, it's just weird to it's just weird to see these things in hindsight, in some
Right.
senses. Like would it have changed anything to know it ahead of time? I don't necessarily think so per se. Like I
Right.
don't necessarily feel like, oh, like I don't know that I would have been prepared anyway. So maybe in some senses, like how do you prepare for such a monumental shift? I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm just happy to have. I am happy to have Uranus out of my house of self, I guess, because um, I'm done. I want to be who I am now. And I mean, of course, we always
Yeah.
grow, but the chaos of the last 7 years has definitely been. I'll be happy
A
to have.
lot.
Yeah, I mean, now we may be going into even more chaos, but maybe it won't be personal as much as it is
Yeah.
environmental and
Right.
societal. I hope not,
Yeah.
but we'll see. But so I just wanted to go ahead and read yours as well. What
Yeah.
this guy said, and I know you've read it too, but I'm curious, um, what you take from it. And to me, this was actually really cool. But Uranus just spent 7 years rattling the chains in your 12th house of the unconscious, a long, strange, private fever dream. Now the revolution plugs directly into your first house, unleashing the most authentic, eccentric, and brilliant version of yourself for the next 7 years. It's like spending years secretly writing poetry in your basement, only to wake up inexplicably on stage at a slam poetry competition and winning. Um, I absolutely I love that for you, number one. Number two, there's a part of me that says, well, okay, what is the most authentic, eccentric, and brilliant version of yourself? Because I like I
Mm.
like what's there already, so I can't wait to see what. I think what's there already is incredible, so I'm not clearly sure how it could get that much better. But to me, that's good news.
That's so
Um,
kind.
yeah, and the journaling, I love the journaling prompts as well, and so maybe I'll just
Yeah.
I'll ask you this, like, um, so what ghost from your subconscious just got handed the microphone, and what's the first truth it wants to scream? And not to put you on the spot, but I think having heard that and with that, what comes up? What's
Yeah.
how does it feel relevant? And I'm just guessing by your body language and that it does feel relevant. And I guess that's just I'll just assume that. But tell me how.
Yeah.
What does it bring up?
Yeah. I mean, like I said earlier, it feels like I've entered my apocalypse era, and it is this unveiling. And when we think of unveiling and revealing, there is a destructive nature to it, but also it's the red velvet curtains being opened on stage, right? Is also an unveiling. And there is something to, like, when I read the poetry piece too, because I'm like, I have a whole book of poems that I just haven't done anything with, and they're just sitting on my computer, and it's like, it's time to just let it go and stop worrying so damn much about what other people think. But I think ultimately this, like, what ghost from your unconscious that has just been given the microphone, it is this, like, I said this the other day to a friend of mine, but in high school, we got an assignment to write manifestos, and mine was on being careful, as in full of care. And a friend of mine, after reading it, we were supposed to read them out loud to the class, and a friend of mine in the class said that mine felt like a slap on the face and a kiss on the cheek. And I think that's one of the best compliments I've ever gotten for my writing, because that's what I want to create for people. I want to shock people back into themselves, because you are so important and so worthy. And how much of ourselves have we forgotten? And I think like I want to like turn the mic up to 11 and just scream at people. Like, it doesn't have to make sense. It just has to be you. And like do it anyways. And also, truth is a paradox. Like, we're all constantly searching for some truth, and it is the thing that is doing the searching, right? It's like a metal detector being made of metal. Like, Alan Watts says trying to define the self is like trying to bite your own teeth. The thing that is doing the thing is the thing, and that thing is pure magic. And just like wake the fuck up to it. And for me personally, in being in my apocalypse era, it's like all of this, it's like wanting to yell that at myself too. And even this mirrored experience of like a metal detector being metal, me yelling this at all of these people is also like what I most need to hear always. And it really feels like becoming a giant mirror. And isn't that what's at the core of all of us? And isn't that why it needs to be unveiled right now?
Mm.
And it's funny to hear you say the last 7 years were hell. This year has been the hardest year of my life, undoubtedly. And also the most personally true and whole.
Mm.
And I just have this desperation for that to continue, to want to keep discovering new pieces of myself and sewing them together. And through that, hopefully helping other people do that too, and reflecting that back to them. So
I love that. Oh, damn, that's good. That is so good, and that is so powerful. Wow. I love the way you put that. I think, I mean, it just, first of all, it just shines through, like the intent and the desire of the honesty of it. This, I want to discover myself, but I also hope in that discovery that others can see who they are as well. Because I agree with you completely. Like, for me, as it is about helping others, reflecting to others who they really are. That's all.
Exactly.
That's all I try to do. I mean, in the folks I work with, the coaching I do, no matter what I do, that's it's always to say this is who you are. That you're so much more. Like it's always expansive. It's always you're so much more than that. If only you could see it. Like these things that you want so much and desire so badly, they are already yours. The only reason you don't have them is because you don't believe them. Like, that's just it. And to want to, and I get exactly where you're coming from with, I just want to scream through this microphone because you see people every day not knowing who they are. And of course, we're always going to learn more about who we are. Like, there's no, that's the thing. Like, there's no, and I think that for me personally, that can get frustrating, right? This idea of like, hey, I just want to pass the course, get the check, and, check mark by my name, and I'm done, right? And I just want to rest. I just want to, I want to climb the mountain, and then I want to take the problem is the mountain's never ending because you get to that, everything's just a base camp. There is no, maybe someday we experience the mountain. Maybe, maybe when we die, maybe there is no mountain. Maybe it's all a lie. I don't know. But the thing is you can't help but discover more about yourself if you look. Like if you look is the key thing, because I know a lot of people who slapped a coat of varnish on themselves and that was it, and people younger than me, younger than you often, but no, I love that truth that you want to scream, because that is so powerful, and you're doing it. That's the other thing, in what you're doing it every day, like you're living it, Reese. That's your life is with integrity, whether you're in Italy, whether you're here, whatever you're going through, that integrity is a through line. It's the river that flows through your life, and you can't help, you never get too far from the river, no matter what it feels like. You may feel like you're completely surrounded by woods, But yet, if you just listen, you'll hear the river, and you
Yeah.
can't help but find it because it's so loud and it's so strong in your life. And I feel it so energetically and so purely in what you express there. I love that this is happening for you. And it's going to be a wild ride, right? Buckle up. I mean, without question, you know, and you must be this tall to ride. Don't try to sneak in if you're not, you know, because
Yeah.
but yeah, I love that, and um just so curious to see where it takes you. You know, I
Yeah.
think 7 years from now we should listen to this and look back
Yeah.
and see,
Wow.
you know, what has changed. And because God, I wish 10 years, I wish 7 years ago I could have gone. I wish we could have had a podcast 7 years ago,
Right.
so we can look and see now that all of this has changed.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I love that, and I think it's such a great question to also to ask yourself. You know, uh, my journaling prompt, for what it's worth, was if your self worth had nothing to do with your bank account, who the fuck would you be? Is which
I love
I
that.
actually don't think is quite as cool of a question as yours, to be honest with you, but nevertheless very very prescient and very powerful. And in the same way, you know, my answer isn't much different than yours. Actually, in a very real way. I may have say it differently, but I think we're very aligned on that, which is why obviously
Yes.
we do this sort of thing. It is the only thing. For example, having, you know, if I were to have infinite money, or effectively infinite money, the only thing that would change is it would allow me to not have to charge people ever, like,
Right.
or do, you know, honestly, and not have to search for business, but just go about my business doing whatever I wanted to do without having to without having to try to promote what I do, or but in a sense, I want people to find me because I want to help
Yeah.
people. So is it, you know, these are all, none of these are bad. I am doing exactly what I would want to do. I find. Now, no, there's more, you know, would I hire more people to like help me with the executive functioning bullshit? Yeah.
Right.
Like there would definitely be like people hurting me, because that's what would be very helpful for me, is I need
Yeah.
people creating scaffolds for me. Basically, yeah. Okay, you can go paint that wall, but here, let's build you a nice scaffold.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I love that. I love that for you. I love this idea of the word that, as I reread what I had said, you know, unleashing is the word that really pops in for you, is to become, you know, Reese unleashed, essentially. What does Reese unleashed really look like? And maybe
Yeah.
Reese unleashed is a little scary for you. I don't know. You know, I don't. I'd be curious to know. I think it's something to explore for you, for sure. Because I know Dennis unleashed scares me sometimes, just
Yeah.
as a concept, and but that's how you're going to become your true self.
Yeah.
Is to become unleashed, and if you think about what is it to leash something, you know, you're trying to control it, you're trying to restrict it, right? Like you're trying to restrict you leash a dog so they don't get away. They're and so being unleashed is the opposite of that, right? It is about
Yeah.
removing that restriction. It is about expanding, because now you're free to be who you really are. And, you know, combining that with human design and saying, you know, I'm going to wait for, you know, I am to respond. So I don't need to make these changes happen, right? It's to just notice them as they come along, respond to. And so maybe this is a perfect time to be a generator, to be responding, because the world is going to be crazy. It looks
Yeah.
like. And so how we respond, you know, but knowing that could maybe I mean, for me, it just says, okay, well, this is what's coming, you know. Always better to know what's on the horizon than to be surprised by it. You know, you may not be able to, you know, I don't know, we can plan for it, but we can accept what's going on.
Right. Yeah. No, it's just so validating, everything that you're sharing, and makes me grateful for our friendship, and also knowing how aligned we are, and that it's like that is why we have come together to do this, right? It's so like deeply aligned and fulfilling, and I'm just so grateful for this. Yeah. And the image of the river that you offered, And even at the times when you don't think it's there, like if you just get quiet, you'll hear it, is like, whoa, that is something I think we could all bear to keep in mind and remember. And it made me think of something you said earlier too about like 7 years ago, 8 years ago for you, what it would have been like. And I hope, but it sounds like even in hearing this kind of take on your last 7 years, it's deeply validating too. And that's something that I think is really powerful about astrology, is that it kind of can feel like that really good friend that's like, well, that sounds like that sucks. And it's like they don't need to fix anything. They don't need to offer any solutions, or they're just there for the ride. And that it's like, that's what astrology can feel like, is just yeah, that's what happened. And it's like, yeah, that is what happened. Thank you for seeing that, which is great. But also, everything that you were just saying felt like that for me too, that it was like, yeah, it is all that. And that it's not crazy to unleash, and it is scary. It is scary. Because also it feels like the thing that will destroy everything. But again, I mean, the word that keeps coming into my mind now is apocalypse, an apocalypse era. And it's like, okay, well, if it's going to destroy everything, is that not what I've been asking for? Like, I keep going back to like things at the beginning of the year that I asked for, and manifestations and intentions that I set in my work with my spirituality. And it's like, I've asked for change. I've asked for revolution for myself. I've asked for the ability to help other people. And it's like, well, you asked for it. Very, very much so. And yeah, I guess I'll just end this little diatribe with thanks, gratitude for the strength that doing this together gives me to have the confidence in unleashing, and the reminder that it's not crazy, that it is expansive and whole.
God, I'm so thrilled for you. I don't know what else to say. I am honored to be a part of and witness this with you. And that's all. Not change it, not control it, not just witness it, because it's an honor. It's an honor to do. And when you think about, I mean, the very fact that we're sitting here doing this podcast is miraculous in so many different ways. Because like there's 100 reasons, 100 different ways why we would have never ever managed to come together. I mean, like the odds of it, and that's why you never know if you just trust what's meant for you is meant for you, and it'll find you. And again, you have such a powerful voice, and I'm just, I'm glad to be a part of it. Like whatever comes up, I'm just happy that I can be here too, and witness it, and hopefully fan the flames. But they're all your flames. There's nothing that needs to be ignited. I can tell you that. It's already, the ignition is already there. It's lit. It's just now take those. The image I get right now as we're talking is if like the space shuttle launches, right? Like the rocket boosters fire, but even as they're firing, nothing's moving yet. And then all of a sudden, the arms move, or the little things move away. That's where I feel like you're at right now. It's like the engines are going, but you're just now, those little arms are moving away so the space shuttle can take off. And that's just that's the image that comes up for me. And so blast off, baby. That's the good thing. Like, you got the engines are all firing and everything looks good. And yeah, so this is a great period of exploration for you. So what an exciting time. And the other thing I wanted to point out, and then we should probably bring us to a close, but is, and this is for everybody, because one of the things I've learned is, we ask for things, but then we question ourselves, we worry, I think, that should I have asked for that? And we have this, I think there's a part of, and it's just our brain and looking for threats and this, that, and the other thing. And it's nothing bad or judgmental about it. It is. But we oftentimes don't trust that what we what we've asked for is really good for us somehow. We worry that it's going to turn around on us, and the whole "be careful what you wish for" sort of thing. Or God's greatest gifts are unanswered prayers. There was a song, a country song like that, as I recall from years ago. But I'm here to say that's we will always get the things that are meant for us. So we don't have to worry. If you can just tell yourself, this is what I've asked for. I'm being bold to ask for this. Maybe it feels scary to ask for this, but the very fact that I'm asking for it means it's good for me. It means it's meant for me. And take away this notion somehow that God's a principal sitting there with a yardstick just ready to like crack it over your ass when, at the first opportunity. And I think so many of us live our lives like that.
Yeah.
And the thought experiment that I'll leave you with is something that I actually experienced just a couple of days ago. And it was, what if I'm worthy of what I want just right now, just because of who I am? Like, that there's nothing I need to do to prove it. There's nothing I need to do to earn it. There's nothing I need to do. I am worthy simply because that's who I am. I literally am worthy of all of the good things that I want, that comes across. There are no restrictions. There are no anything. What would it be like to live that way every day, every minute of every day? And sometimes you can get glimpses of it. And that's what's so beautiful. Those few times when it's like, wait, no, I am. But I would encourage people to focus on that. Like, what makes you feel, when you feel worthy, recognize that you are worthy of this. Like, this is meant for you. You wouldn't want it if it wasn't meant for you. Walk fully confidently in that fact, and let your maker, let your maker who loves you do what they have promised, because you wouldn't want it if it wasn't meant to be yours. And it's exceeding abundantly above whatever you think it is anyway. So let it happen. That's my admonition to you, to me, to everybody, is you are worthy now. Like, you're not going to become more worthy. It is impossible for you to be any more worthy, any more capable, any more perfect than you are right now. Now, can you grow? Can you unfold? Can you transform? Yeah, all of those things, of course. But you're still perfect when you transform. A caterpillar is perfect as a caterpillar, but they're also perfect as a butterfly. And their transformation was perfect. One wasn't better than the other. They weren't more perfect before they became a butterfly, and they weren't more perfect after they became a butterfly. I don't know. Maybe somebody needed to hear that. Maybe you needed to hear that. Maybe I needed to hear that. I don't know. But love this. This was so great. So great. Any those are my final thoughts. I'll leave on that. But what else comes up for you? What are your final thoughts to yourself, to me, to the listeners, to everybody?
Honestly, I don't really want to add anything else. I think that's the perfect note to end on, is exactly what you said. What if you were worthy of everything right now as you are? How would you live? How would that change your heart, your connection, the way you put your feet on the ground? And it's true. It's true.
Why do we worry? Why do we worry? Why do we work so hard to convince ourselves that we're not worthy? Like, literally, our brains will fight against you. You come up with this, you tell yourself you are worthy, and your brain comes up with 10 reasons why you're not. Why do we argue against our worthiness? Just sit in it, marinate in it. I'd encourage everybody, just repeat to yourself over and over again. And say it with feeling and see what it feels like. Like, what comes up? And is there catches? Like, where is the catch in this? Like, what is it? What am I not worthy of? Like, what does it mean to be worthy? Go down that rabbit hole and see what happens, folks. Like, it'll change you. Like, you have to change. It may be scary, but it's what's for you. So awesome time. So to everyone out there, you are worthy. I'm just going to say that, full stop. Like, whatever it is you want, whatever your dream is, no matter what anyone says about it, whether society deems it worthy or not, whether society deems it good or not, it doesn't matter. If it's your dream, if it's your desire, it's perfect and it's for you, and you are worthy of it, whatever it is. So walk in that daily and see what happens. Try it. It's not a religion. It's just an experiment. Try it one day at a time and see how life unfolds for you with that assumption that I am worthy.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's the perfect place to end.
Perfect.
Thank you all for sharing your worthiness with us today and coming along this journey, and we will see you all next time. Bow Down is a weekly podcast from the Cohere Collective that explores esoteric and empowered feminism.
Please subscribe to Bow Down wherever you may be listening. And if you enjoyed the episode, please leave us a like, a 5-star rating, and a review. And if there's anyone you think would enjoy this episode, or maybe just needs to hear it, please share it.
If you want to stay up to date on all things Bow Down, you can follow the Cohere Collective on any social media platform at the Cohere Collective, and check out other content and offerings at www.thecoherecollective.com.
If you're interested in working with Reese to find and pursue your purpose, I encourage you to head to www.thecoherecollective.com/life-coaching.
If you're interested in working with Dennis to shed your mask and embrace your desires, you can email Dennis at dennis@theheartstoybox.com.
A huge thank you to Jack Corbett for Bow Down's music. You can find him on Instagram at j.corbe. Thank you all for joining us today. We're so glad you're here.
And as always, we hope you feel like you are living more coherently. And until next time, love.